We talked for a few more minutes, but then my husband and mother-in-law stopped smiling. "Laura, are you okay?" my husband asked impatiently. "What?" "Oh, it's nothing," I replied. I knew my husband had something planned. Suddenly, my mother-in-law stood up. "Ouch, oh," she cried, rushing to the bathroom, holding her stomach. "Mom, are you okay?" my husband asked, worried. "Why does my stomach hurt so much? This can't be. Laura, did you switch the tea?" "I did. Me and your mother." "Why did you do that? What's wrong if I switched the tea? My name is Lara. I'm 30 years old and I work in an office. My husband, Joshua, and I have been married for 2 years. We met at work when he joined our company from a client I was working with. At first he struggled to adjust, but the next time I saw him, he seemed to be doing well. I thought he was smart. We got closer, started going on dates and having dinners together. He confessed his feelings for me, and we officially started dating. Our relationship went smoothly after that. He proposed, and we got married. I felt our new life was going very well. Joshua isn't good at cooking, so I always cooked. In return, he did the cleaning and laundry. He also took out the garbage, which was really helpful. But recently, his behavior towards me has changed. He used to follow me everywhere and always wanted my attention when we were at home. I had to tell him to be patient, almost like training a puppy. But now he rarely shows me affection. He used to talk to me in a sweet voice, but lately he's been rather cold. "What's for dinner?" he asked. "It's hamburger, your favorite," I replied. "Okay," he said. It didn't seem like he cared much. I went through the trouble of cooking something special for my husband, but his response was distant. It feels like he's lost interest in me. He used to be so loving. I hope he'll treat me kindly again someday. And it's not just my husband. There's someone else who's been bothering me, my mother-in-law. Ever since we got married, she's been critical of me. "Hey Laura, why didn't you prepare snacks?" "I'm sorry, but you came over unexpectedly. You should have expected it and had something ready." No, that wasn't possible. Until recently, my husband always supported me and stood up to my mother-in-law, but now he's started siding with her and criticizing me. I don't think Laura is considerate at all. "A wife should always be ready when my mother visits," he said, agreeing with my mother-in-law. "You never know, I might leave you if you keep this up," he threatened, talking about divorce. It hurts because he wasn't like this before. I feel a mix of sadness and a desire to trust him still. Then something unbelievable happened one weekend. My mother-in-law unexpectedly came over to our house. For some reason, she brought tea and sweets that day. The tea looked expensive, and she seemed cheerful as she spoke to me. "I went out of my way to get the best tea I could find today. Let's enjoy it together." I don't understand why she's suddenly so nice to me. It feels like there's some hidden reason behind it. My husband even said, "Thanks, Mom. I'll make the tea today." Lately, he's been urging me, "Hurry up and set the table. My mom is waiting." I felt uneasy about his sudden kindness. Then my husband brought me a cup of tea with a smirk on his face. "Wow, it smells amazing," my mother-in-law exclaimed, leaning in to sniff the tea. I was suspicious and leaned in to smell it too. It smelled like regular tea, but there was something off, like there were bubbles floating in it. This couldn't be good. I knew I shouldn't drink it, but what could I do? I wondered if there was any way to switch this tea without them noticing. "Oh, by the way, mother-in-law, your favorite Korean singer was on the music show the other night, and I recorded it. You can watch it if you want," I said. "Really? I'll watch it right now," she replied eagerly, getting up to find the remote control. "Oh, wait, aren't there any snacks? You made tea but forgot about the snacks," I mentioned to my husband. My husband can be a bit touchy, so he easily gets defensive. I was just about to do that. "Give me a moment," he responded, going to fetch the plates and snacks. While they were distracted, I quickly swapped my tea with my mother-in-law's, just as they returned to the table. "Shall we have some tea?" I suggested. "It's quite a nice cup of tea, isn't it?" My mother-in-law and husband started drinking their tea and watched me closely as I took a sip of mine. "This tastes different than usual," I remarked. Both my husband and mother-in-law had smiles on their faces. "Yes, I know, I made sure of it," my husband said. "Yeah, it's delicious," added my mother-in-law. They chuckled at my comment about how good it was. "Yes, it's very good," I said, finishing all the tea. My husband and mother-in-law still had smiles on their faces. We chatted a bit more, but their smiles eventually faded. "Laura, are you feeling okay?" "What?" I responded. "No, it's nothing," my husband said impatiently, clearly up to something. Then suddenly my mother-in-law stood up. "Ouch, oh." She hurried into the bathroom, clutching her stomach. "Mom, what's the matter?" "Why do I have such a stomach ache? Oh no, this can't be happening." "Hey Laura, did you switch the tea?" my husband asked urgently. "I swapped mine with your mother's," I admitted. "What? Why would you do that?" What's wrong with swapping? Does that mean there was something wrong with the first tea you gave me? No, it's just that. Tell me the truth, or you won't be able to handle the consequences, and your mother will be in danger, I insisted. Reluctantly, he admitted, I actually put a large amount of powdered laxative in your tea. Wow, no wonder she got a stomachache. Large doses of that stuff can be really dangerous. Seriously? Call an ambulance, he said quickly. Okay. That's how my mother-in-law ended up being taken away in an ambulance. My husband was visibly upset and hurried to go with her. Meanwhile, I decided to pour the tea he tampered with into a water bottle to keep as evidence. I'm taking this to the police to file a report. While my husband and mother-in-law were at the hospital, I made the decision to pack up my things. I called my parents and asked them to help me move out. When I arrived at their house, my husband called. My mom's in bad shape. She'll be in the hospital for a few days. Can you bring her some clothes and things she needs? He asked urgently. What? No, I can't do that, I replied firmly. You have to. She's in trouble, and you're my wife. Please, he insisted. I can't do this anymore. I'm filing for divorce, I said decisively. Divorce? I exclaimed. When I mentioned the word, there was a moment of silence from my husband. I understand. If that's what you want, then fine. But since you're the one asking for divorce, you don't get any share of our property, he replied coldly. What are you saying? You're the reason for this divorce, so I deserve my fair share, I retorted. Don't be absurd. I'm not giving you anything. This divorce is your decision, not mine, he argued. I'm appalled. You're the one who tried to make me drink that tea with laxatives. How can you deny your responsibility? Besides, I have strong evidence against you, so you will face consequences, I said firmly. But before I could elaborate, he hung up on me. I realized I had a lot to do, like finding a lawyer, so I let it go for the moment. Later, my husband asked me why my belongings were missing from the house. He blamed me for the house being in disarray because I wasn't doing my chores. I received many unreasonable and selfish messages. No, you're the one who wants a divorce, right? You understand that once we're divorced, you'll have to take care of the house by yourself. There were so many things I wanted to clarify with my husband, but I didn't respond until after I had arranged for a lawyer. Once my mother-in-law was discharged from the hospital, my husband and in-laws visited my parents' house, clearly upset. Divorce isn't the solution, but I'll go along with it. You didn't even bother to visit my mom in the hospital after what happened. You just left our house with your stuff. How can I stay married to someone like you? My husband said arrogantly. My mother-in-law glared at me, and it seemed they had only told their side of the story. My father-in-law believed them. Laura, I think you're being selfish, he remarked. My father-in-law is the only reasonable person in my husband's family. I knew he would see things differently if he knew the whole truth. I took out my phone and played an audio recording. I had actually put a lot of powdered laxatives in Lara's tea. The audio was strong evidence. When they heard it, my husband and mother-in-law turned pale. How did you get that recording? My husband had implicated himself. Father, I felt threatened. I quickly swapped my mother-in-law's tea with mine. Suddenly, she complained of a stomachache. She had always treated me badly, and my husband used to defend me against her. But recently, they started teaming up against me, and now he had gone too far. After hearing my side, my father-in-law's expression turned furious as he stared at my husband and mother-in-law. Joshua, what's going on here? Is it true that you've been mistreating her too? He demanded. My husband and mother-in-law were visibly embarrassed under my father-in-law's scrutiny. No, Dad, wait, it was just a joke. Lara got upset stomach from the laxatives I put in her tea. It was meant to be a harmless prank, Joshua tried to explain. I would never mistreat her either. It was all in good fun. You can't call that bullying, my mother-in-law chimed in, attempting to justify herself. I don't think that was just a joke. You can't keep getting away with this. Is this why Joshua has been treating me so terribly? I challenged, my voice steady with resolve. I placed an envelope on the table and revealed its contents. Photographic evidence of my husband's affair that I obtained from a detective agency. My husband's face drained of color. Why? Did you think I was oblivious? Your distant behavior raised suspicions, so I hired a detective agency. I never wanted to believe you were cheating. Maybe you just wanted to push me to divorce you. It was clear I had struck a nerve as my husband broke into a cold sweat. I confronted him with divorce papers, ready to end it all. No matter how clueless you are, facing divorce papers in this situation should make it clear you're in trouble, right? I'll be entitled to alimony and a fair share of our property. Plus, I'm reporting you for assault for putting laxatives in my tea, I asserted firmly. The police? Wait, don't you feel sorry for Joshua? My mother-in-law pleaded. What? Are you serious? It's not just my husband. You too, mother-in-law, are involved. He was working with you, I retorted. Wait a minute. Why should I be blamed? It was Joshua who put the laxatives, my mother-in-law protested. Mom, you came up with this plan. Don't try to pin it all on me, my husband interjected. What? You asked me to help you because you were looking for a new wife, I exclaimed, shocked by my husband's revelation. My husband and mother-in-law began arguing, each refusing to admit their wrongdoing. Finally, my father-in-law had enough and intervened sharply. Enough. Both of you are responsible for this. Stop arguing and face the consequences together. Don't complain when the police come for you. Joshua, you need to take responsibility for your affair. Pay Lara the alimony she deserves and give her your share of the property. My husband and mother-in-law were visibly shaken by my father-in-law's stern words. I was relieved he intervened, as my own father was on the verge of losing his temper too. I'll handle the legal aspects through lawyers, I declared, urging my husband to sign the divorce papers promptly. After much reluctance, my husband finally signed the divorce papers under pressure from my father-in-law. I apologized sincerely for the trouble caused by my foolish son and my wife. I'm truly sorry, my father-in-law said to us, then escorted my husband and mother-in-law home. Following that, I pursued alimony claims against my ex-husband and his affair partner through my lawyer. I received $30,000 from each of them. Subsequently, I filed a police report against my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law for assault. I provided the audio evidence of my husband planting laxatives and the tea from the incident, leading to their arrest. They were both fined as a result. As a result, my ex-mother-in-law found herself in a situation where she had to work and pay the fine on her own, after my ex-father-in-law left her and filed for divorce. Struggling with the fallout, she couldn't even rely on her own son due to their mutual betrayal. Currently, she's working part-time for a modest salary to meet her obligations. Meanwhile, my ex-husband faced repercussions from his affair partner, who was furious that he had misled her about their future together. She demanded alimony, and my ex-husband, unable to handle the situation, borrowed money to pay her off in a lump sum. This sudden payment caused the affair partner to disappear from his life entirely. In short, my ex-husband found himself abandoned by both me and his affair partner, burdened with significant debt. It's a situation he brought upon himself and truly deserves. On the bright side, I achieved what I wanted, securing my share of the property, which brings me relief. I'm currently living independently in an apartment and working hard. Recently, I even received a promotion at work. I'm considering taking a trip with friends or my parents to celebrate this new chapter in my life. Intentionally putting laxatives in someone's tea is a serious crime, not a joke. Both my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law should face the consequences for their actions. I'm grateful that my father-in-law was understanding and supportive throughout the ordeal. Despite this disaster, I'm optimistic that I'll find a wonderful person in the future who respects and cares for me.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.